Man, the Tar Heels have been great in the second half of games lately. So my question, how do the second half Heels become whole game Heels? Coach Rob's going to help us figure it out.
This is David Noel, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Wednesday, January 28th, 2026. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Network, now the #1 sports podcast network out there. Really appreciate you making us your first listener watch to get this hump day started the right way. Special shout out to all our everydayers, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and of course our insiders as well. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off that first Game Time purchase. Joining me on the show today is our good buddy, Coach Bill Robinson, head coach of the Milligan University Buffaloes and a 2-decade veteran of Carolina Basketball School, which is Carolina's summer basketball camp. And so he's got all sorts of great insight and connections into the program. And in fact, he's written this great book all about all of those experiences called Carolina Basketball School History, Stories and Drills. It's a great one. Maybe you're hanging out inside in this frigid late January moment and you need a good cozy book to remind you about how incredible the Tar Heel family is. Check out Carolina Basketball School. You can find it on Amazon or email Coach and get a signed copy directly from him. Here's where Coach and I are headed on the show today. Look, Carolina has been great in the second half a lot, but I sure would love it, and I'm sure you all would as well, if they would not dig themselves into such holes in the first half. So we're going to look about how can the Tar Heels do that. Secondly, we've seen some interesting rotations lately. Jarin and Stevenson, not the first big off the bench. Instead, it's been Zayden High. Jaydon Young, been in the starting lineup lately. Is that going to continue, and why is that happening? Lots of questions about Coach Davis's rotational choices of late. We'll see if we can get some wisdom and insight from Coach Rob about that. And then finally, I was looking at some numbers, and in calendar year 2026, North Carolina's offense is operating at an elite level. The defense, avert your eyes, children, because it's been ugly. So we'll look at, can Carolina get that balanced or not? So, Coach, I have noticed, and a lot of it is because of my stats nerd geekiness, whatever you want to say, that North Carolina has often throughout this season operated as a better team in the second half of games. My question is, how do we get that fixed? I've got some follow-ups, but I just want to pose that to you. I can give us some numbers, but I want to ask you the question before we go anywhere else with it. Like, why is it happening, and how do we get it fixed?
I think if I knew why that was happening, I'd write a book that would make a whole lot more money than the one that I wrote. It's hard. It's hard to know as a coach exactly why things are that way. And there are things you can do in practice. A lot of times when we do situational games, we play 2-minute games where you've got to play right now. There's no waiting for second half. You've got to win, and you got to win right now. You can talk about those type of things. Maybe you can change the warm-ups. You can change starting lineups. You can come with more of an urgency as a staff so that everybody else maybe can try to, just kind of latch onto that and feel that same urgency. But when it really comes down to it, it's the guys that have to make the difference. They've got to be able to make the plays. They've got to come out there with a different mindset. So I think challenging them to come out and play as if it's, 10 points down from the opening tip, something like that, maybe psychologically, it'll make them to play a little bit more urgent than they would if it's just 0-0.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to trick them. All right, boys, it's time for tip-off, but guess what? It's the second half and you're down by 20, right? Like, there's almost like this psychological way you have to trick them. And coach, for a lot of armchair quarterbacks, it's easy to sit there and say, okay, we'll just have that sense of urgency starting the game, right? And so my question to you, as somebody that deals with this all the time, is why is it not that simple, Coach? Why can you not just simply say, hey, fellas, that sense of urgency that you're operating with when you're down 16 late in the first half? I need you to start the game with that. Why is it not that easy?
I go back to Roy Williams' quotes about Michael Jordan. You know, he had the ability to flip that switch on or off, but he never turned it off. Well, it's that's the way these guys are. A lot of athletes are. They can turn it on, turn it off, but it's really hard to keep that switch on all the time. That's why MJ is the greatest ever, because he never turned it off. So it is hard, and you never know what's going on with young kids' lives. It can be a relationship, it can be a bad test, it can be just a bad day, and you've got to be able to figure them out psychologically. We had two great practices in a row, and you feel like momentum's going well, and then yesterday we just kind of had a bummer. And you're sitting there going, doesn't make any sense. Everything's still the same. We're doing what we've always done, and sometimes it just doesn't seem to click.
Mm. Is there any level at which it could be, we often talk about some of the great coaches, like Bill Belichick is known for this, of being so great at halftime adjustments and allowing his team to be a second half team. Is there like a potential like diagnosis that's happening in the first half that then the staff might be making some adjustments at halftime? Like, is there an element to where it could be some of that at all?
I think it can be. I don't think it was Saturday. I think the big change was make shots. And when the make shots happened, it allowed everything else to get better. And that's a big part of it. And we talk about momentum all the time. We talk about momentum. We use baseball as an example a lot, because when guys get hitting, everybody hits. And then when all of a sudden then nobody hits. And there's a momentum that goes with it. And it just seems that maybe on the road it's harder to get the momentum early. When it's at home, they should be playing better in the first half, and that's why it's really confusing sometimes to see them not play well at the Smith Center in the first half. Just doesn't make sense.
Coach, the numbers on. Well, let me ask you. I want you to guess. Carolina's played 20 games. In how many of those games would you guess they've scored more points in the second half than in the first? This is where my stats nerdiness comes in.
I would say 30%.
14 of their 20 games, they've scored more points in the second half than the first half. So so does that shock you? You said 30%.
Yeah. No, it definitely does. And again, numbers don't always make sense. I love numbers too. I don't love them as much as you do, but they definitely do give you a better sense of what's going on with your squad.
One of the things I track, Coach, is I know we play halves in men's college basketball, but I track how many points Carolina scores in each quarter of every game. And so on average, Carolina is scoring, listen to this, first quarter, 19.4, second quarter, 19.9, fourth quarter, 19.9, third quarter, 23.3. Coach, 3 times this season, Carolina has scored 30 or more points in a quarter. It's all been in the third quarter of games. And so there is something happening coming out of the locker room where there's this renewed urgency, renewed energy. I don't know what it is, but the third quarter seems to be specifically when it's happening.
It could be great motivational speeches by coach at halftime. It could also be great leadership and guys, just being able to get together and say, hey, this has got to change. It can be competitiveness. All of a sudden realizing, hey, we got to step it up right now. We got to make a difference right now. I would wish and hope that leadership and that motivational speeches are overrated. Some of the best speeches I've ever given were right before blowout losses. You're trying to give your best, win one for the Gipper speech. And when it really comes down to it, it's all about talent, who's got the better team, who plays better. It's not about what we can control as a coach. So I do try to save those speeches for, maybe, once or twice a year, because they're just not worth a whole lot. But I do think it's something about, the time that they have where they're gathering together at halftime and being able to go out there and do something, a little bit better.
One of the interesting thing is, I said there's 3 third quarters where Carolina has scored 30 or more points. It was Kansas, it was Notre Dame last week, and it was Virginia on Saturday. And so some, outside of the Notre Dame game, some very important moments to have big third quarters to kind of wrest control of the game. Go ahead.
Yeah. I may have an answer for that, because those are 3 games I actually watched. So maybe it's me, because they were horrible in the first half on Saturday, and I got home from practice and watched the second half, and I was obviously at the Kansas game too. So I think they just need to bring me a seat there on the corner of the court there, and that will be the answer for them for the whole thing. That's all they need to do, is just bring me in and watch every single game.
Coach, do you hear that's the sound of the entirety of Tar Heel Nation asking you to cancel every game or practice that conflicts with the Tar Heel game for Milligan. I apologize for wrecking your season now. All right, you guys. Now, part of the conversation surrounding these first half starts is I think some of the Carolina fan base has been puzzled by some of Coach Davis's rotational decisions at points in the game. I'd love to get Coach Rob's thoughts on why Carolina might be handling some of that the way they are. And we're going to have that conversation in just a second.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. The WNBA has released its 2026 schedule featuring a 44-game regular season beginning on Friday, May 8th. The league's historic 30th season includes expansion teams Portland Fire and the Toronto Tempo, with opening weekend highlights such as Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever hosting Paige Beckers and the Dallas Wings, and a rematch of the 2025 finals between the Aces and the Mercury. And unrivaled, Miami felt the breeze as Paige Beckers powered the breeze to a 75-68 win over the Lunar Owls, finishing with 28 points and 7 assists. She was joined by 20-year-old Dominique Malonga, who added 21 points, 8 rebounds, and became just the second player to ever dunk in an unrivaled game. In college hoops, South Carolina handed Vanderbilt its first loss of the season with a dominant 103-74 win. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment. Putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
Thanks so much for making Locked On Tar Heels your first listen or watch of the day and making the Locked On Network the #1 sports podcast network out there. It's because of all of you who hang out with us and join in on this great community. And if you're a true diehard Tar Heels fan, I want to tell you that our brand new Everydayer Club is all for you. It's an opportunity to get things like an exclusive newsletter, 15% off at the Locked On merch store, ad-free episodes, and so much more. Check it out. That link is in the show notes, lockedontarheels.supercast.com. Coach, it's interesting. I feel like this has just sprung up over the course of the past week or so, where I've started hearing from quite a few different people questions surrounding why the staff is using personnel rotations the way they are. And I think it specifically revolves around two things. We've seen Jaydon Young start each of the past 2 games. On Saturday, he played a grand total of 7 minutes, 4 in the first half, 3 in the second. We've also, since he came into the starting lineup and Jarin went back to the bench, we've seen Zayden High each of the last 2 games be the first big off the bench, not Jarin Stevenson. Jarin then comes in the second half and goes bonkers Saturday against Virginia. Coach, could you shed any, obviously I know you probably haven't talked to Coach Davis specifically about this, but could you shed any light onto why some of those seemingly not what most people would go with rotational decisions are happening?
Yeah, those are really inside decisions that are really hard for anybody outside to understand. I can explain why I would do certain things, obviously, because I know we had a situation the other night where we kind of skipped the rotation and went a little further down the bench because we needed something specific. We needed the shooter, not the defender. And I'm not sure in Zayden High's situation why that would happen, and especially 2 games in a row. It's a little bizarre. And I obviously Jarin played great, and I would be shocked if he's not the first, post off the bench next game, or even slide back into the starting rotation somehow because he played so well. But I wouldn't touch that. I would leave him and bring him off the bench after what as well as he played the other night. The Jaydon Young one, I think he's played. To me, that just shows that he's had great practices, that he's been playing really, really well, and they're giving him an opportunity. But in his 7 minutes, he was 0 for 2, 0 for 1 from 3. To me, there's your opportunity. You got 7 minutes to play well, do something, make an impact. you'll get more minutes. Don't do anything. Don't make an impact. And then, Luka played great, came in
He
and
did.
scored and did some really good things. And those minutes are limited to those two guys. So I've said this probably 1,000 times. If you want to play, you got to beat the guy in front of you. So to me, Jaden's probably beat Luka in practice and showed that he deserved those minutes. But then Luka's beat Jaden in game situations, and I think you'll see Luka back in the starting lineup very, very soon.
Another part of it, obviously on Saturday, Coach, Henri Veesaar, his only game this season, scoring single-digit points, obviously had some foul trouble, and so Jarin was the beneficiary of that. Coach, was that the right call? Like I've heard some people say, I kind of like the Stevenson Wilson front court, because if Carolina is going to continue to switch 1 through 5 like they do, it's better with Stevenson, who's a more capable and mobile guarder, than would be Henri Veesaar. It's not like Veesaar is going to be suddenly confined to the bench, but do you think we might see more of that Stevenson Wilson front court if Jarin continues to play at the level he did Saturday?
Yeah, I think it's nice to have both available, to have both those different dynamics, because obviously Henri gives you a little bit better rim protection. Not saying that Jarin can't, because he can, but it's different when you're 7 foot and long. But I do think it gives you the freedom to be able to do multiple things, and what a luxury to have, a future NBA guy get in foul trouble and bring somebody else in that plays even better than he did on Saturday. So I don't think it's something that you will see in a starting lineup, but I do situationally. End of game type situation, I can definitely see them going with Jarin and Caleb at a time where maybe they just need to switch everything, switch the whole deal, and just go out and defend people.
Well, and especially because Jarin, for his career, has not been a great free throw shooter, but Coach, this year he is leading North Carolina in free throw shooting at 78.4%. And as we know, because we've talked about it, any made free throws that the Tar Heels can find is a big thing. Whereas Henri is shooting right now, I got to go way down the list, 61.4% from the free throw line. And so, especially as you said, late game, as it was Saturday, when you need dudes to step to the free throw line and knock them down, Stevenson is going to be a more trusted entity than would be Henri. That's part of it. Coach, I got another question about these rotations that I wondered about. There have been times, and I think people have started to point this out, where because Caleb is having to exert so much energy because of the defensive attention against him, because Seth puts so much out on the line, they often seem gassed as we get to the final 3-4 minutes. Maybe that's why you lose that Stanford game, why you can't close that out, for example. Is there a world where these earlier Jaydon Young minutes, these earlier Zayden High minutes might be to buy some more energy from your closing 5 in that second half? Is that part of the calculus at all?
I think it is, but I mean, let's be honest. A tired Caleb Wilson's still better than most anybody else. And we're going to try to figure out ways to keep him on the floor as long as possible. So he played 35 minutes the other night. I think that's going to be something you'll see more and more. So in my coaching situation, if he's with me, maybe we give him Monday off this week, maybe Thursday off this week, maybe we just give him limited minutes. They've got systems where they can track exertion and jumping and all that stuff during practice. So I would lean heavily on those numbers to make sure that he is fully ready every game to play 35 minutes a game, because I just believe he's that important to the success right now at both ends.
Coach, I want to go back to Jaydon Young. Has now started 2 games, as you said. In those 2 games, has played a total of 21 minutes, 1 of 6 from the floor, 5 rebounds, an assist, a steal, 1 turnover, and 3 total points. Do you think, and I know it's not all about like points and box score production, right? Like there's so much more to it, as you alluded to, what's going on in practice and all that. Have you seen enough from him in what he's done in starting these 2 games where it makes sense to you to keep him in the starting lineup, or would you reinsert somebody else in that position when we get to Saturday down in Atlanta at Georgia Tech?
Yeah, I think it's probably time to put somebody else in there. Not that he's not worthy of minutes. I definitely think he needs to continue to get that 7, 8,
Yeah.
10 minutes a game. I don't think it's, hey, you're going to go sit down now. But it comes down to you. It's a performance-based industry. You have to be able to make an impact. And if somebody else is playing better, then they get the minutes until you prove that you can make it. But again, I have not talked to anybody about this. I'm curious now that we've talked about it enough, I may reach out. But to me, it just means that Jaden's playing really well in practice. If he's got this opportunity, that means he's played well. And if he's playing well in practice, I think you need to keep rewarding him with those minutes, even if it's coming off the bench.
Yeah, agreed. We've had 8 different Tar Heels start at least one game this year. We'll see if it goes back to Stevenson or Luka. Jonathan Powell, interestingly, has never started a game. So I'm very curious on Saturday, about 15 minutes before tip, when we find out that starting 5, who's going to get the call at the 2 or the 3, depending on who that is. Coach, North Carolina's offense in calendar year 2026 has been operating at a literal top 2 level in the sport. It's insane. But the defense, hide your kids, hide your wife, close your eyes. It's been ugly. So, Coach, my question is, can Carolina find some sustainability, some consistency? Did you see things in the second half against Virginia that you thought might be propelling Carolina back in the right direction? We'll look at that to wrap the show coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about Game Time, y'all, there is nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moment, but getting tickets, oh my goodness, that part has not always been so simple. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, in the hands of you, the fans. You can pull up the Game Time app, pick an upcoming NBA game, and then you can have your tickets locked in within minutes. I love seeing the all-in price up front. So it's not like, all right, well, that's the price, but how much are they going to add at checkout? No, it's all right there. You can also see the view from your seat right there in the app. I love that. Like, is it going to be obstructed? How much of the court can I see? That's great. Getting great last-minute tickets, all of that is part of Game Time. Maybe you're in Atlanta area Tar Heel and you want to go see them at Georgia Tech this weekend. You can get in the door for $106. That's not bad there at McCamish Pavilion. Or maybe you just want to wait till they're back in Chapel Hill next Monday, Big Monday against Syracuse. Right now, tickets for that, just $21 is the lowest price, man. If you use the code where you get $20 off, that means you can go to that game for $1. Crazy stuff. Or maybe you got some deep pockets and you want to go see Duke next Saturday. Carolina right now, that price, Game Time, the cheapest is $583. It should go down as we get closer to Game Time, but keep watching the app. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download their app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not gametime.com. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. It's Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. So whether you're backing the favorite or whether you're riding with the underdog Patriots or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. The perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, you can bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. For the Super Bowl, Seahawks favored over the Patriots by 4.5. Go get in on that line. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Coach, one of the things I've been keeping my eye on all season is Carolina's offensive and defensive efficiency. It's funny because preseason we talked so much about that we thought Carolina's defense could operate at an elite level as it did 2 seasons ago. And for a while, it looked that way, but recently it's flipped. Coach, I know we often talk about KenPom, but one of the other great analytics sites is barttorvik.com. One of the things I love about his site is that you can actually adjust dates to look at specific glimpses in time. And so I was looking because Carolina's offense has been great lately. And so I started it for calendar year 2026. So January 1st through today. Coach Rob, Carolina's offense is second in the nation in offensive efficiency, not second in the ACC, none of that. In calendar year 26, second in offensive efficiency behind only Illinois. But coach, when we turn to the defensive efficiency, oh my, I don't know how to say this, so I'm just gonna rip the Band-Aid. Carolina is operating as the 223rd in the nation in defensive efficiency, second in offense, 223 in defense. So coach, obviously that offense is encouraging, but the defense is lagging. Saturday's win is not going to be sustainable if the defense can't catch up. So my question to you is, did you see any encouraging signs in that second half that we talked about that Carolina might be finding their way again defensively?
I rewatched the whole second half today because I knew you were going to ask this and really searched hard. And the biggest thing I saw was that the offensive rebounds for Virginia went way down second half. And they finished possessions, and when they finished possessions, it led to those long pitch, heads to Jarin for layups, and it allowed them to get quick stops and be able to run the offensive things. I think the biggest key of that second half was the 2 threes that Seth
Jarin.
hit right
Yes.
to start the second half, and it almost gave them a little boost and said, "Oh, wait a second, we're still in this. We can still win this." And then all of a sudden, the defense gets better, and then the running starts to happen. And we had a great defensive team last year, and we changed personnel completely, and now defensively is where we struggle too. It really comes down to a mentality. Do you have guys who love to play defense? Do you have guys who love to play offense? This team loves to play offense. I think if you ask Caleb which one he would rather play, he would rather play offense all the time. He's not a great defender right now, and he does spend a lot of energy at the offensive end, but it does affect him at the defensive end.
Yeah.
Our guards have really struggled defensively. And I think with Derek Dixon in there, it's definitely solidified, but it's still not where we want it to be. So I think there's still a lot of questions at the defensive end. I don't think they've been fixed yet. Giving up 80 points to Virginia is still enough to win a game, but it's not enough to impress you as a defensive team.
So then I think I'd like to ask more about the defense, but what that leads me to want to ask you is, do you think Carolina's offense with Derek Dixon now at the helm is good enough where they can outscore most teams, right? They might not be able to do that every game, but like, can the defense just do enough and the offense do more than enough to win the requisite number of games that the Heels need to?
I think they can win enough games. They're not going to win the big games. Obviously, Virginia was a big game. It's a huge game. A massive game. I will quote somebody on that one. A massive win. It was a massive win. But to win in a couple Saturdays against Duke, you're going to have to play a much better game defensively. You're going to have to rebound much better. The rebound numbers still shock me. It really disturbs me to see how. I mean, I think Virginia had as many defensive rebounds as Carolina had total rebounds, and that just doesn't happen to the great defensive or great teams that Carolina's had. So I think those are the type of things that need to get fixed. They need to get fixed pretty quickly.
Yeah, the total there for that number you were just saying, Coach, Carolina had 28 total rebounds. Virginia had exactly 28 defensive rebounds. And so that, as you said, I think disturbing is an accurate word for that. So, Coach, obviously, with the defense as seemingly broken as it is right now, you can't fix it all at once. In the same way that if you're down 10, you can't hit an 11-pointer to make a comeback. So if you, having rewatched that whole second half, if there was just like baby steps, right? Like what would those baby steps be right now to just move in the direction of the defense being better?
Yeah, I think shot selection to me is always the first step because you have to take good shots that lead to defensive balance. And I thought the shot selection that they had second, I mean, they were layups and threes. They were open looks. They were post moves, with balance all along the way. So there wasn't any really bad decisions shot selection wise. I can think of one shot that I didn't like, but other than that, they were all good shots and it all had good balance, and it didn't give any easy shots at the other end. Bad shots usually lead to great shots, and they just didn't take any. So to me, that's the first step. The second step would be obviously for the guard play to be able to increase. If they're going to continue to switch all 5 positions, which with Henri in the game, I think is really hard to do. We have a defense we call outlaw. We actually switch 1 through 4 and then just stay 5 locked in so he doesn't have to switch out. I would like to see maybe doing something like that where they can still switch 1 through 4, but allow Henri to stay with the big on the other side. The last thing is, again, we alluded to it already, but it's the rebounding. They've got to be able to focus on. They can't give up 16 offensive rebounds like they did against Virginia.
Yeah, absolutely not. Coach, I think a lot of people would be shocked or surprised to hear you say, because so often we talk about how defense feeds offense. You have twice in this segment alluded to Carolina's offense helping the defense. Number one, it was when Seth made those threes, and then it was like, oh, we're scoring. I guess we better lock down and defend a little bit. And then the other was the way in which a bad shot sets you up negatively on the defensive end of the floor. And so Carolina getting and taking the right shots at the right time is the preamble to playing good defense. And so I think that's something for folks to be able to watch as well. Do you think Carolina has done better, or do they need to improve with just that individual, like, I'm staying in front of my man? Like, I don't know if you happen to watch the Arizona BYU game on Monday night, Coach. The last possession of the game, everybody's talking about Braden Burry's block to seal the victory, but he was able to get that helping block because Jaden Bradley walled off Rob Wright III, stayed in front of him all the way to the basket, made him like hesitate at the rim before he could go up. That gave Burries the time to recover and get that block. Like, is Carolina doing enough of what we saw Jaden Bradley do for Arizona?
Yeah, I stayed up to halftime watching that game because it was on the West Coast. But it starts with the one-on-one. And we try to do something one-on-one every practice. And when people say that, well, really, you do it every day, because it doesn't matter, zone, man, whatever you're going to do. If you can keep the ball in front of you, it is such a huge advantage. And I do think that's something they struggle with too. They worked on some, just being able to guard your yard, to be able to, one step either side of you, and just being able to stay in front. One of my favorite quotes, it's just kind of a motivational thing, but it's, I'll guard my man and then I'll help you if you needed help. And that's what Arizona did great last night. They're better than I thought they were. I haven't seen them in person until last night, but they're special. I think they've got all the pieces to be great, but they get down and guard it. And if you get a win at BYU in that atmosphere with the way those guys are playing right now, that's a huge, huge victory for them.
Yeah, and to your point, the atmosphere was incredible. The Marriott Center is great. BYU might have something cooking over there as well. But yeah, Arizona is really, really good, Coach. It's crazy to see. Poor Henri left it behind, and now he's hanging out with us. But we're grateful he did. Man, good stuff there, Coach. I know that in the back of your head, we haven't had a chance to say it, but is screaming to get out. More pressure, more full court. Let's see it. Carolina is getting opportunities when they do that. So obviously we'd like to see more of that. Curious to see what Carolina does Saturday down at Georgia Tech. Coach, any parting words before we get out of here?
No, I'm just excited to see anytime they have a whole week off before playing again, to see if they do make any big adjustments, if there's anything new offensively, defensively. So that's the big thing I'm looking for this weekend. Of course, we play Saturday as well, and probably won't get to see it live, but when I get back to watch it and Synergy be able to get to really break it down, I'm looking to see some new stuff, and always looking forward to seeing what happens after a whole week off.
Well, based on what you said earlier, I think you've just jinxed Carolina to lose down in Atlanta. So way to go, Coach. No, that's great stuff. As always, so grateful to you for your time and wisdom and insight, especially in season where I know things are crazy for you. I know that everyone listening and watching is grateful as well. My brother, appreciate you as always. You guys, if you've not subscribed to the show on video and audio or wherever you get podcasts, do it right now so you don't miss a second of Locked On Tar Heels. If you haven't subscribed to the brand new Everydayers Club, do it right now. Great perks await you there. If you've not joined us in the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, we'd love for you to come hang out with us. A great community of Tar Heels all the time. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll be right back with you tomorrow, but until then, peace.